They used to yell, "Action!" and I'd jump through fire. Now, no one even looked at him. Ray Delgado sat hunched on the edge of a cold metal bench on Hollywood Boulevard, a faded duffel bag resting between his feet, his knuckles calloused and stiff from decades of stunt work and survival. The walk of fame sparkled beneath layers of gum, glitter, and forgetfulness, a perfect metaphor for his life. People passed by with coffees, cell phones, earbuds, always in a rush to nowhere. No one noticed the man with the crooked spine and silver ponytail. No one knew he was once the shadow behind a legend. He was the man who jumped off cliffs when cameras rolled. He was the man who stood in for Rambo and nearly died doing it. But that was before the fall, before the silence, before the world decided he was expendable. Ray's days now began with the sound of delivery trucks and ended with the ache of old fractures that never healed right. Nights were colder than they used to be, or maybe he just had less hope to keep him warm. He didn't beg. He didn't speak. He just existed. But today was different. He had heard a voice. That voice, deep, gravelly, with that unmistakable Philly drawl. Ray froze mid-bite in his sandwich from the shelter, his heart thudding like a war drum. It couldn't be. He turned, slowly. And there he was, surrounded by cameras, fans, handlers, the whole Hollywood circus, Sylvester Stallone, older now, but still every inch the fighter. He was giving an impromptu interview outside the Chinese theater, just blocks from where Ray once took a fall off a burning platform for him in First Blood 2. Ray's breath hitched. His hand instinctively rose to his chest, where the scar still burned under the fabric. But he hesitated. What was he supposed to do? Walk up and say, "Hey, remember me? I almost died catching fire for your movie 30 years ago?" Therefore, he didn't move. He just watched, silent, invisible again, until Stallone's eyes swept across the crowd and stopped. Right on him. Ray looked away, but it was too late. The voice came, cutting through the street noise like a blade. "Hey, you looking at me like you seen a ghost." Stallone stepped forward, past the cameras, past the fans. For a moment, time folded in on itself, and Ray felt 17 again, on a dusty set in Thailand, covered in sweat and gasoline, waiting for someone to yell, "Cut." "You're Ray, right? Ray Delgado?" The world spun. Ray nodded, barely. "Holy hell," Stallone whispered. "You're still alive." Flashback. It was 1984. The set was chaos, flames licking the bamboo scaffolding. Stallone had slipped, wires malfunctioned. It was Ray who leapt into the inferno, knocking him out of the way, taking the brunt of the collapse himself. 3 broken ribs, a torn shoulder, facial burns, no press release, no thanks. Just a letter from the studio. "Thanks for your service." And that was it. His career fizzled. His body never healed right. And Hollywood? It moved on without looking back. Back in the present, Stallone was now standing in front of him, eyebrows furrowed. "I thought you were gone, man." "After the accident, no one could find you. What happened?" Ray's throat tightened. He didn't speak for years unless he had to. "You lived," he finally rasped. "That's what mattered." Stallone stared. Something broke in his expression, like guilt that had been quietly aging in the cellar of his mind, now uncorked. "You saved my damn life, Ray." But before he could say more, cameras were on them again. Microphones, reporters. "Is this a reunion? Who is this man? Were you two in a movie together? Sir, look this way." Therefore, Ray turned to walk away. "Wait," Stallone called. "You're not going anywhere. Not this time." He reached into his pocket, pulled out his personal assistant's card and pressed it into Ray's hand. "Tomorrow, Studio City. Come see me. You're owed more than a handshake, Ray. You're owed everything." Ray didn't respond. He just stood there, surrounded by flashing lights and curious eyes, trying not to cry. But his hand closed around the card. For the first time in decades, he felt seen. Scene shift. That night, Ray lay under a viaduct with his back against concrete, the business card lit by a flickering street lamp. He thought of calling. He thought of burning it. He thought of how much he hated hope, because hope could hurt more than pain. But something whispered through the dark, "Maybe your story ain't over yet." The next morning, Ray stood outside the studio gates, cleaner than usual, his long gray hair tied back, the card tucked in his pocket. The guard looked at him like he was lost. "Name?" Ray hesitated. "Tell Stallone. The guy who burned for him is here. People forget the ones who fall behind the frame." Ray knew that better than anyone. As the studio gates slid open, something inside him clenched. He hadn't been on a film lot in over 30 years. The last time he walked one, his arm was in a sling, his face half bandaged, and no one made eye contact. But now, he was expected. A young assistant named Cam met him with a hesitant smile and a clipboard. "Mr. Stallone said you might come," he said. "He's in Soundstage 4, wants to see you before the shoot." Ray followed silently, his boots thudding softly against polished concrete. The sounds of a film set, hammering, shouting, laughter, lighting rigs buzzing, flooded his memory like a homecoming laced with ghosts. They passed rows of trailers, extras in costume, techs adjusting rigs. All the same, yet none of it belonged to him anymore. But something shifted when he stepped inside the soundstage. The smell of sawdust, fake smoke, the echo of footsteps across the concrete. It was as if time rewound. There were mock jungle sets being built, props, weapons, weather machines, a new Rambo reboot, clearly, younger actors in tight shirts lifting weights between takes, trying hard to be what Ray used to pretend to be, while Ray used to be the one bleeding underneath. And there he was, Stallone, sitting on an equipment crate, wearing a black hoodie, script in hand. No crew, no PR, just the man himself. He looked up and smiled. "Took guts to come. Sit with me, Ray." They sat in silence for a moment. Ray's eyes drifted across the room, a jungle built on gaffer tape and plywood. His knees ached just looking at the harnesses. "Looks familiar," Ray murmured. Stallone chuckled. "Yeah, but safer now, all CGI, even the blood. Doesn't sting the same." Stallone leaned forward. "Ray, I owe you a damn apology. I didn't fight for you like I should have. You disappeared, and I let the studio bury it. I buried it." Ray shook his head. "You lived. That was the point. But that wasn't the point. Not anymore." Flashback, the fall. It wasn't just the fall from the platform. It was the silence that followed. Ray remembered lying in a hospital bed, hearing through the grapevine that the shoot continued without him. His role filled in by a younger stuntman, his name scrubbed from the credits. He'd taken the hit. Then they hit delete. Back then, he thought someone would call. No one did. Present. "You didn't just save my life," Stallone said now. "You carried half those damn scenes. You made Rambo real. People screamed in theaters because of what you did. Not me." Ray let that settle. For years, he'd been nothing but a body double, a shadow, a ghost behind the glory. "Then why'd no one say that?" he asked. "Because people like to forget who bleeds," Stallone replied, voice cracking. "That's what I'm trying to fix." Later that day, Stallone introduced Ray to Nina, a 30-something documentarian with curly hair, sharp eyes, and a voice full of conviction. "I want to tell your story," she said. "The real story, the doublés, the risk, the lives behind the legends." Ray flinched. "Why now?" "Because it's never too late to be seen." He didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so he just nodded. Therefore, filming began. Nina followed Ray to the viaduct where he slept, to the shelter where he ate. She captured him patching an old leather stunt vest, his hands trembling from arthritis. She filmed him revisiting the alley where he once rehearsed fight choreography. Old crew members were interviewed. Some cried, some lied. Some didn't remember him at all, but one did. Jerry Kaplan, the former stunt coordinator, now retired and bitter. Ray Delgado? He shouldn't have taken that leap. I told him it wasn't rigged right. Nina leaned forward. You knew it wasn't safe. Of course. But the schedule was tight. Studio pushed. I looked the other way. But that admission changed everything. Nina confronted Stallone with the footage. He didn't blink. We use it, Stallone said. People need to hear it. All of it. The documentary teaser dropped 2 weeks later. A single clip. Ray saying, I didn't fall. I was pushed by a system that didn't care if I got up. The internet exploded. Stunt workers, veterans of Hollywood, fans of Rambo, they all shared it. Hashtags trended. Remember Ray, the real Rambo. Stunt justice. Therefore, the Academy reached out. Ray was nominated for an honorary recognition of lifetime contribution to film. Ray didn't believe it. They used to cut me out of the frame. Now they want to frame me in gold? Nina smiled. Maybe it's your turn. Ray sat alone in a borrowed suit, backstage at the Dolby Theater, his name echoing through the hall. Ray Delgado, a man who risked everything so others could shine. The crowd rose in applause. He stood, hands trembling, breath shaky. And then, he stepped into the light. They gave me a trophy, but what I needed was a name. The applause still echoed in Ray's ears long after the lights faded. He stood backstage at the Dolby Theater, gripping the honorary Oscar like it was made of glass, not because he feared it would break, but because he feared he would. The world now knew his name, Ray Delgado, the man behind the scars, the man behind Rambo. But fame came with a cost, and not the kind he expected. The documentary, now streaming on every major platform, painted Ray as a forgotten hero and Hollywood as a machine built on discarded lives. It sparked protests, interviews, think pieces, legal investigations into stunt safety. Studios panicked, PR firms scrambled, lawyers whispered in conference rooms. Ray? He just wanted a quiet place to think. The downtown shelter where Ray once slept, and where many stunt retirees still lived, was suddenly under fire. A developer announced plans to tear it down and build luxury condos. Nina rushed to Ray with the news. They say the documentary made the area too visible. Now they want to gentrify it. Ray's stomach sank. You mean, I made it worse? No, Nina said. You gave it a voice, but now we need to fight for its heartbeat. As if on cue, Victor Marsden, a sleek, silver-haired producer with designer glasses and a reptilian smile, approached Ray with a proposition. A biopic. You, Stallone. The fire, the fall, the comeback. Think of it, Ray. A proper film, a tribute. We'll donate profits to the shelter. Win-win. He smiled with too many teeth. You'll be played by Hemsworth, or maybe Oscar Isaac. We'll clean up the character a bit. Trim the rough edges, add a love story. Ray stared at him. So, lie prettier? Victor shrugged. People like redemption, but they like it digestible. But, Ray hesitated. He could fund the shelter, maybe even start a union for stunt professionals. Therefore, he agreed to a meeting. The script was a disaster. Ray was portrayed as a grizzled loser who only found purpose through the validation of Stallone. The accident, framed as a mistake. The silence that followed, omitted. Nina's role, erased completely. This isn't my life, Ray said, pushing the script away. It's your story, Victor replied. Just shaped for mass appeal. It's your story, Ray snapped. With my blood. He walked out. Ray called Nina. I don't want to be famous. I want to be useful. She met him at the shelter. Together, they spoke with the board. Ray offered to donate all proceeds from the documentary and Oscar appearance to save the shelter. If they could turn it into a legacy house, a place for aging, injured, and retired stunt performers. No one else is building a net for people like us, Ray said. So I will. Flashback. A scar. Revisited. Late one night, Ray stood before a cracked mirror in the shelter bathroom. He unbuttoned his shirt. The scar from the fire, a jagged path across his ribs, stared back at him. He touched it gently. "You cost me everything," he whispered, "and gave me more than I knew." An old clip leaked, Jerry Kaplan admitting fault and the studio's cover-up. The story went viral again, but this time with backlash. Some accused Ray of exploiting trauma. Others claimed it was all staged. Tabloids ran wild. Real Rambo or real liar? Doublé of deception? Oscar winner under fire, Stallone called. Ignore it. This town eats its own when they don't know how to say thank you. Ray stayed silent, but it hurt. At a Hollywood panel on legacy and film history, Ray was invited to speak. Cameras flashed. Executives sat stiff in the front row. Victor was there. So was Jerry. So was the press. Ray stepped to the podium. "They want me to say something poetic, something tidy, something Hollywood." He paused. "But here's the truth. I was a name on a call sheet, a number on a harness, a body behind the face. And when I fell, no one caught me." The room held its breath. "But someone will now, because I'm building a place where no one has to vanish to be valued." Thunderous applause followed. But the moment didn't end there. Nina later found Ray back on a practice rig, rusted, creaky, unused in years. "What are you doing?" she asked. Ray clipped in the harness. "One last jump. For the shelter's fundraiser. They want a show." "Are you sure that's safe?" "No," he smiled, "but it's honest." Hundreds gathered for the fundraiser. Cameras rolled. The media swarmed. Ray stood atop the scaffold, older, slower, but with fire in his eyes. He looked down. He looked back. He jumped. Some jumps you take for a paycheck, others you take to be remembered. The crowd held its breath as Ray Delgado flew. Time slowed. The rigging held, barely. His body arced through the air, not like a man reclaiming fame, but like someone reclaiming identity. He landed on the crash mat with a grunt and a laugh that sounded like rusted gears, finally moving again. For a moment, there was silence. Then, applause. Louder than the Dolby Theater, louder than the premieres, louder than any action ever shouted on set. Ray lay back, eyes on the sky, and whispered, "Now they'll see us." The fundraiser was a success, more than expected. Donations poured in. Stallone matched every dollar. So did others. Actors, stunt teams, directors who remembered what it was like to need someone to take the hit for them. The Legacy House opened 6 months later. Not just a shelter, a training ground, a hall of fame, a sanctuary. Photos of stuntmen lined the walls, names long buried now engraved in brass. Workshops for young actors, mentorships, safety standards. Ray was there every day, teaching, listening, rebuilding. Nina released the full documentary, titled "The Man Who Fell on Purpose." In it, Ray said, "I used to think silence was safer, that if no one knew me, they couldn't erase me. But I was wrong. The only way to be remembered is to speak." It was nominated for an Emmy. Nina declined the red carpet. This story doesn't walk. It stands still and lets the world come to it. At the opening gala of Legacy House, Stallone gave a speech. "I've played heroes for 40 years, but Ray, he was the hero. And the worst part, I didn't see him until the cameras were off." He paused. "We don't just owe Ray, we owe every person who ever took a hit and didn't get a line." Ray hugged him after. No words, just hands, calloused, grateful. Years passed. Ray grew slower, the aches louder, his scar, a roadmap of where he'd been. One evening, Nina found him sitting outside the Legacy House alone. "You okay?" she asked. "I was just thinking," he said. "What happens to a stunt when no one sees it?" She sat beside him. "You tell someone about it. You pass it on." He smiled. "Exactly." Nina later found a letter Ray wrote, never sent, addressed to his younger self. "Don't chase the frame. Become the fire inside it. Don't wait for applause. It never comes when you need it. but someone someday will know you were there, and that's enough. Ray passed away, quietly, one morning, in his bed, at peace. The world mourned. Not like they do for movie stars, but like they do for someone real. Legacy House held a ceremony. Stuntmen flew in from across the globe, actors, crew, fans, and Stallone, older, grayer, placed Ray's harness on a glass display. "He didn't just double Rambo," he said. "He was the part of Rambo I could never play. The pain, the grit, the silence between the lines." At the end of Nina's documentary, the screen faded to black. One sentence appeared, white letters on black. "They used to yell action, and he jumped through fire. Then, now he rests in light." A teenage actor, skinny, unsure, fumbles a fall in the training room. An old instructor chuckles. "Don't worry, kid." Even Ray Delgado hit the mat his first time. "Who's Ray Delgado?" the kid asks. The instructor smiles. "Come, let me tell you about a man who jumped, so the world would finally look down. He fell so others could stand, and in doing so, rose higher than any star ever could. Thank you so much for watching. Your time means everything to us, and we hope this story moved you as much as it moved us. If it did, please consider leaving a comment, sharing the video, and subscribing to the channel, because powerful stories deserve to be heard. Until next time, stay kind, stay strong, and never underestimate the impact of one small act of courage